Now we're joined by Sue Peters, who's running for Seattle School Board District 4. So go ahead with a 2-minute introduction.
Well, I have nearly 10 years of experience with Seattle Public School District as a parent of 2, a high school and an elementary school student, and also as a volunteer, both at the classroom level and at the district level, and as a local and national public education advocate. I was selected to serve on 2 district task forces in the last 2 years, the Superintendent Search Focus Group with a team of 23 community leaders. We helped the school board select the superintendent. And then this year I served on the Strategic Plan Stakeholder Task Force, and that was a team of 73 community leaders and Superintendent Bonda and department heads, and we helped forge the mission, vision, and goals of the district for the next 5 years. I'm a founding member of Parents Across America, a national organization that's inspired by Dr. Diane Ravitch, and I'm honored to have her endorsement. She recently referred to me as a champion of public education. I'm a co-founder of the Seattle Math Coalition and the Seattle Education Blog. As a professionally trained journalist, with a master's degree from Stanford, I've applied my researching skills to the analysis of national public education policy for the last 5 years. And for that reason, I support keeping public education public, fiscally and academically responsible decisions that correspond to the needs of our communities, respect and support for teachers, and I believe I'll be able to serve you well and hit the ground running on the district as your representative. Because I'm committed to progressive and democratic principles, I'm honored to have the sole endorsement of the King County Democrats, the 32nd District Democrats, the 43rd, the ML King County Labor Council, the Local 609, State Senators Marilyn Chase, Bob Hasagawa, Representative Jerry Paulette, King County Councilmember Larry Gossett. I have the highest rating in the race from CMEC. I would be honored to have the endorsement of the 36th District Democrats as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now we'll do our prepared questions, 2-minute answers to each of these. Where do we leave off? Clayton, I think you're... Why don't you go ahead and do number 1?
Assuming the legislature actually increases funding for Seattle Public Schools in response to the McCleary decision, and please note my smile, what are your priorities for spending the money?
Okay, well, we've also recently switched over to a student assignment plan where students are assigned to their local schools, but we don't have equity between all our schools, and so I believe in investing in all our schools so that every school provides the engaging environment that every student will need. I'm a big proponent of smaller class sizes. If it's possible for us to do that, I would support that as well. That will benefit all our kids, especially, and our disadvantaged children could benefit from more one-on-one interaction that would benefit all of our students. I'm a big proponent of investing in strong curricula. That's something that would be an easy fix that would help a lot of students, and divesting from testing. And so these are the sorts of things I think we could do with this sort of funding. I mean, the wish list is very long. I'd like to bring back counselors and all kinds of support services that have been cut in recent years. And again, that would benefit all of our students.
Okay. Elizabeth, number 2.
In your view, what is the appropriate role of the school board in determining curriculum? And what is your opinion on the current curriculum?
Okay, well, the role of the school board is to vote on the curriculum choices brought before it. The curriculum itself is actually determined by committees. I do believe that if I hear from my constituents that they have concerns about the curriculum, which has been the case recently about the math curriculum, that it is my duty to bring that to my colleagues and bring it to the superintendent, say there is concern in the community about this issue, and to try and influence towards choosing a strong curriculum. But and I know that has been done before. The school board directors have done research on curriculum. As far as overall, I think our science curriculum could be stronger. I'd like to see arts education provided for all the students. Right now, enrichment is not available for all our students. I'd like to see a greater investment in the arts and humanities, as well as stronger science, and also switching over to the stronger math curriculum in K-8.
Mary, number 3.
Yes. What is your outreach strategy to make the district and its schools more approachable for non-English speaking families?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that recently who works down in South Shore, and she brought up the point that a lot of our immigrant families, for them it's a cultural adjustment to know that they are welcome in our schools and that their input as parents is welcome. And so it's a matter of reaching out to them and telling them, yes, we do want you here, we do want you involved with your child's education. And so that involves having events where you bring the families in, that involves any kind of help with any language differences. I support having bilingual teachers, multilingual teachers even, and anything that we can do to bridge any of these cultural differences as new families join our school district. And we have, I think it's 147 different countries represented in our 51,000 student body. And so it is, the diversity is wonderful, but we do need to reach out to bring everybody in so they can participate.
David, number 4.
In your view, what should the school board be doing to assure equal educational and achievement opportunity in Seattle Public Schools?
Yeah, this is something that I touched on earlier, and that's definitely important now that we have students assigned to specific schools. I mean, I think we have to take a look at making sure we have resources allocated equally if we can. But there's some cases like PTA funding is not something that the district controls, but we do have schools that have very large access to PTA resources on other schools that don't. I'd like to see a way for us to compensate for that, to provide the enrichment, the before and after school enrichment that some schools aren't able to have, and find a way to find the money for that, whether it's from levy money or some pot of money that we have in the district to do that. I do think on the strategic plan task force, the two main themes we talked about was access and equity. Making sure that every student in the district has access, an equitable amount of access to programs, solid education, and I think we have to begin by making sure that what they have access to is worth accessing. And so that means, again, investing in things like the curriculum, and if possible, having more teachers, having smaller class sizes, bringing back all the support services that have been cut. I recently talked to a teacher who told me that if there's a psychologist in the building, she can teach. But if there's not a psychologist, then she's not able to teach as well because she has to bring lots of other support to her student before she can actually get to the academics. And so I do think an investment in that kind of support services is very, very important. At the high school level, we're talking about career counselors. Some of those were cut in recent years. And then I also want to talk about this disproportionality study that came out recently, the federal government looking into the disproportionality of punishment that is meted out in our district disproportionately to students of color, special ed students. Obviously, we have to correct that because that is not treating our students equally, and I would like to take a look at that as well.
Great. John, number 5.
Last year, voters approved Initiative 1240, which allows the establishment of charter schools. What impact will this have on Seattle Public Schools, and how should the school board respond?
Okay, so that's the charter schools. I have been involved in some of the charter schools. I did research them again as a journalist and found that, as you've all heard about the Credo report, that found that 83% of charter schools perform no better or perform worse than regular public schools. I'm concerned about the fact that a study out of UCLA, the Civil Rights Project, found that they're resegregating our schools. They do direct public funding to private places. And 1240 I oppose for a number of reasons. One of the most devastating elements of 1240 is the trigger mechanism, which allows a simple majority of 50% plus 1 of parents and teachers in a school to take over a school and make it a charter school. And so that leaves the other 49% with no recourse. That is not democratic, and that is a recipe for divisiveness. And so that's one of the concerns I have. Right now, 1240 is held up in the courts. It's being challenged, and rightfully so, because as written, it is unconstitutional. It bypasses the supervision of OSPI, and it also does not treat all our schools like common schools, which is how it's written into our Constitution. So that has to be addressed. So right now it's in limbo. But if it does come out of that situation, and we are dealing with it at the school district level, I don't support being an authorizer. And I believe that we need to invest in all of our schools, our current schools. We have good things going on in our district. We have innovation, we have creativity going on. We just need to replicate it and keep our public money in our public schools and keep our public schools public.
Great. So now I'll open it up to follow-up questions. These are 1-minute answers. I see John C. and then Elizabeth.
Let me preface this by saying I truly am an undecided voter. But both you and your opponent have introduced the concept of how democratic are you? I noticed in Alice's letter, and I think we're all of Alice, she mentioned that, and I heard this from someone else, that your opponent has contributed money in 2006 to Mike McGavin, who was running against Maria Cantwell, and which could have been, given the 2000 election, a close election. So that really upsets me a little bit, more than a little bit. But also your opponent has mentioned that you were involved in Nader's campaign in 2000. So can you tell me the extent of your involvement and how did you feel about what happened in Florida?
Oh, okay, so I actually wasn't involved in 2000. I was involved in 2008.
Okay, 2008.
Yeah, and you want me to talk about Florida? That was a travesty, what happened in Florida. So, do you want me to talk?
Well, I guess that's clear. That was my concern. It was 2000.
No, it wasn't
So you said
2000.
2008.
No, I wasn't involved in 2000.
And in 2008, why were you involved with Nader over Obama?
Okay, here's what happened. I was actually very excited about Senator Obama, and I went and saw him speak at Benaroya Hall. I don't know if you remember that. It was about a year or so before he announced he was running for president, and there was such a great response that they had to move the venue to Benaroya Hall. And I was inspired by him, and I saw that the audience was very, very hungry for a strong leader. And then when he announced he was running for president, I was excited. I went and caucused for him at McClure Middle School. And I thought, this is going to be a great election. We've got a historic choice here between our first African-American president, our first woman president. Then my friend Matt Gonzalez got in touch with me, and I worked with him in San Francisco. He's a progressive. And he said, Sue, I'm running for vice president. Will you work with me? Will you help me? And so I said, okay. And so I did. I worked for Matt as an advisor, and he was running as an independent vice presidential candidate with Ralph Nader in 2008. And my two concerns were, okay, I was going to be working with a campaign that was taking me away from where my focus was, but also I wasn't sure if anyone was going to pay attention to Nader that year, frankly. I mean, it was a very exciting year. And so I was hired by Matt's campaign, and then I was hired by the national campaign as a communication strategist. I believe Nader got
And we're actually
100% of the
out of
vote.
time on this question, but we might be able to circle back to it.
Okay.
So, but Elizabeth, you had a question.
So you mentioned that you didn't think the school board should be an authorizer of charter schools. Can you expand on that?
Okay, that is one of the possibilities with 1240 is for school boards to choose to be authorizers. And here in Seattle, we voted against it. I mean, it was like a 60% vote against it. Our legislative district, clubs all voted against it. And I think we believe here in Seattle that we have the wherewithal to be innovative, creative. We can bring to our schools what we need without outsourcing our schools to charter franchises from out of state. So we don't need charters in Seattle.
Mary?
Can I ask her to follow?
Oh,
her
sure.
answer
You want
to
to keep
John's
answering,
question?
keep answering John's question
Keep
about.
answering.
You got cut off.
Okay, let's see. Where did I leave off?
Matt Gonzalez, Nader.
Matt Gonzalez and Nader. Yeah, so I was hired to be a communication strategist for the campaign. And my job was to do things like see if any newspapers would print op-eds by Ralph Nader. And some of them did, because the Christian Science Monitor did. And to be honest, the things that Mr. Nader was talking about were things like, oh, we need greater regulation of our banks. We need to listen to Main Street, not Wall Street. All of that came to a head that September with the economic crash. And so that's the story of 2008 for me. I will say that my whole life I've only ever supported progressive candidates. And they have been Democrats most of the time, sometimes Green, and in this case was an independent. But I'm committed to progressive principles and progressive approach to education as well.
Okay. Mary, you have another question?
Somebody else's. I was reading recently about the first Common Core testing that took place in New York City and gave very discouraging results. And I just wondered what you think about the Common Core and how it might affect us here.
Okay, well, our state has chosen to go forth with Common Core that will start to really kick in next year. I have concerns about it. First of all, I think it's an unfunded mandate because Common Core is going to require new curriculum, new testing, new training, and it's not clear where this money is going to come from for all of this. I'm also very concerned by what's going on in New York, where students have been failing the tests incredibly. They've been very stressed by these tests. It's It's like this leap into some kind of rigor without any preparation. And we have been told that once we go into Common Core, we can expect students, 10 to 30% more students to fail the test. Now, why would we want to set up our students to fail? I don't understand. I don't understand why we're going into the testing before changing the curriculum. And I've also heard that some of the Common Core standards are not higher than existing Washington State standards. And specifically, I've heard in math, Common Core requires algebra and the mastery of multiplication tables a year later than we currently do. So I don't support weakening our standards in the name of Common Core. So there's a lot to be sorted out with that, and I think we just have to be vigilant and try and maintain the high standards that exist as well.
Great. Additional questions? I have one. So I've been asking all school board candidates this, but being on the school board is a difficult job to do well. It's not paid. There's no support staff. Yet you're expected to provide oversight of $1 billion budget. So are there any reforms to the school board itself that you would advocate for?
Any reforms for the school board?
Yeah, whether getting a salary or getting staff or
I think more,
any.
yeah, I think some kind of staffing would help. I mean, I know there is some staff support, but it might be good to have some kind of internship type of connection set up where there's assistance for the school board members, because my understanding is it's pitched as a part-time job, but I just read a comment from Rita Butler-Wall who says it's actually 60 hours a week to do it well, and that's going to be hard. I mean, I'm a mother of two, and as is my opponent, and and we have other things, other work that we're doing. So any assistance that could help the school board directors do a better job, be more informed. I know research is a big part of it, and those of us who have been trying to help the school board do their job from the outside, it's mostly comprised of doing research and then sending the school board these informed letters saying, hey, you might want to look at this or this policy or that sort of thing. So support, and there's been talk about whether it should be a paid position. I think that's something that could be considered, maybe either part-time, on a part-time salary.
Great, thank you. So we have time for maybe one more question. Anyone has one? John?
I asked not one of your opponents, but another school committee candidate this. The current school committee that was elected in 2011, how would you rate them on a scale of 0 to 100?
Okay, the body as a whole.
Just, and basically all of their work. What kind of a job have they done? How would you grade them?
Boy, I mean, I think they've been doing okay, actually. I mean, I'd say 75, okay? And that's based on the fact that they've actually been voting, together a lot, and there hasn't been a whole lot of discord, despite what you've been reading in the papers. They selected a superintendent, they created a new strategic plan, and that's all happened well. They voted 6-1 on the green resolution, and I think they've actually been doing quite well as a group. I don't think they should be complaining about each other to the press. That's something that I wouldn't support. And if you compare them to the previous board, I think things are a lot better. We don't have some damning state audits. We have not had our superintendent and CFO fired, under this current board. And so I think that it's heading in the right direction. And I look forward to being a member of the board and collaborating with the whole room.
Actually, if someone has a short question, we have time for one more. Looks like you want one.
What changes do you think the board might implement to ensure that kids who get through junior high school as ordinary kids are challenged?
By ordinary, I mean...
Because I see a dichotomy in education between the AP kids and non-AP kids. This is a tremendous problem to me. Because it essentially writes off non-AP kids from AP challenge, just by definition.
Well, I believe that every student who is able to keep up with an advanced learning class, or any student who is able to be challenged should be challenged. And we have to be very, very diligent about identifying what our students are capable of and not underestimating their abilities. I mean, every student needs to be engaged. And so And I do support challenging every student. I feel like I'm not answering your question. Do you want
Well, it's a complicated question, and I'm out of time.
Thanks.
So, here we go.
All right, so we are about out of time. So if you want to take 30 seconds to give a closing statement, that'd be good.
Sure. Well, during my 10 years with Seattle Public Schools, I've worked actively to make our school district better for all of our students. I spoke up during the costly school closures, which ultimately had to be reversed 8 months later at a cost of $48 million. I've advocated for student safety, student privacy, stronger curricula, and due diligence on the part of our school board. I'm committed to representing all the schools and all the families of our diverse school district diligently and well, and I would welcome your support.
Great, thank you very much.